Hi there, this is Wicked, that stands for What You Can Do, and it's your old pal Jake with a frog in his throat. We got a couple of fun ones today. We're going to talk towards the end here about how you can deprogram MAGA family members or people in your community who are just lost in that far right nonsense. And leading into that, I got a couple of really fun videos. Coming up first here, a federal judge has offered a preview of the legal arguments you're going to hear, or more likely the legal rulings you're going to hear from judges regarding the fact that a lot of J6ers are saying they must be innocent because Trump told them to go do it. A lot of people have gone to prison already over January 6th and their actions therein. But it's a worthwhile argument to look into because one might think, looking at it in broad strokes, either these people are guilty or Trump is guilty, and the reality is both can and in fact is both can be true and in fact are true. Yeah, let's get right to this video.
For the first time, a federal judge has cited the House January the 6th Committee's final report since it was made public last week, indicating that then-President Donald Trump's remarks on January the 6th of 2021, telling a crowd to, quote, fight like hell before the Capitol attack, may suggest Trump was asking them to break the law. In a court order in the case against January 6th defendant Alexander Shepard, U.S. District Judge John Bates ruled that Shepard could not raise the so-called public authority defense at trial.
Okay, so public authority defense, the defendant there, a J6 rioter, is saying, look, POTUS said to go do this, and then I went and did it. He's appealing to authority, and this is going to be real important to know later on when I'm talking about how to deprogram MAGA. These people, I did an earlier video on levels of maturity, essentially, stages of development. People who are stuck in the MAGA zone appeal to authority like crazy. That is more or less the only tools they have for deciding whether something is right or wrong, or rather for making an argument about whether something is right or wrong, is just how much authority does the person have that's said to go do it. For the rest of this video, because it is very corporate media we're looking at, think of this analogy. Imagine your boss at work told you a bank is open right now. The doors to the bank are physically open. I want you to run in there and grab all the money out of the vault. The vault's open too. Just rush in, grab it all. And then you go to court for this because you are tackled by security with the fistfuls of money in your hands. You're arrested. You go to court, and your boss eventually also goes to court. It's America. He's wealthier than you. It takes longer. But you say, well, my boss told me to do it. The judge will essentially say what I believe they're going to, or what it does look like the judge said here, which is, yeah, what the judge told you to do was illegal. What your boss told you to do is illegal. That means you broke the law and your boss broke the law. Let's hear the rest of what they have to say.
After his lawyer argued Trump had authorized his client's actions at the Capitol that day. Judge Bates, a George W. Bush appointee, rejected the defense, writing that Trump did not tell the crowd that entering the Capitol or impeding the certification of the electoral vote was lawful. In a footnote, Judge Bates noted that his ruling was not out of step with the January the 6th committee's final report, which concluded that Trump acted, quote, corruptly because he knew stopping the certification was unlawful. Joining us now, NBC News Justice reporter Ryan Riley. Ryan, unpack this for us, because it's a little complicated for people to follow, certainly for me to follow anyway.
Let's.
Yeah, so essentially the public authority defense has been, it's come up in history before.
I just want to say, I don't know why they've selected apparently a college freshman to talk about this, or why he chose to wear eyeliner for the interview.
But essentially what it means is that someone in the authority to do so was telling you that something was legal. So, take an example of this. If you were told that, okay, you can't protest here, but you can go protest in that park across the street, and then, you were arrested for that after you were instructed to do that. It's essentially an entrapment offense, or telling you something that was legal that wasn't. So, it came up in regards before with a break into a psychiatrist's office, in regards to the Pentagon Papers historically. It's been raised in numerous issues where essentially the argument is that someone with authority in the executive branch perhaps instructed you that you were able to do something and you relied upon that this behavior wasn't criminal.
Okay, I hate how they do that. He's like, oh, let me just pack my pipe. It happened historically with the Pentagon Papers. What average person knows what the F he's talking about? That is very annoying. I think he is being smarmy to try to impress his friends, and look like a fancy Dan. You're not a fancy Dan, guy in a dorm room. You're just not. That said, he is factually correct.
Now, essentially what this ruling says is that Donald Trump never explicitly said that to defendants. He never said that storming the Capitol is now legal. We won't prosecute you, right? If he had said something like that, this would be a much more different case. But, he wasn't that over the top with his language. But the judge also doesn't sort of let, I think, Trump off the hook with responsibility for what he did say, and sort of indicates that there's a suggestion in Trump's speech, despite his language, that he wants them to do more than just go over and, hold up a sign outside the barriers that had been set up around the Capitol.
Also essentially saying, yeah, we're not idiots. You had 10,000 people, you sent them to the Capitol, you said what you said. Just because you didn't have the balls to say, go in there and hang my vice president and yada yada yada. The message that he was delivering was crystal clear, and I'll tell you, those of us who were watching it live, more or less, all had the same reaction, which is, Jesus Christ, he's doing a coup.
Because that's certainly, I think, like what a lot of people have read into that, right? Fight like hell doesn't sound like go there and hold up your sign outside the barriers. Boom. And shucks, if we don't stop the steal, quote unquote, then we're just all going to pack up and go home. That's not really what Donald Trump seemed to be suggesting in this in his speech. But he wasn't. Just want to
make it clear. Oh yeah, let's keep it with that supervillain up there. Every single one of those would have fought for the Confederacy. You ever wonder what would I have been like? What would people have been like in X era or Y era? Every one of those would have been Reb scum. By the way, John Brown did nothing wrong. Neither did General Sherman.
About in regards to this case, he wasn't explicit about saying that this is now legal. You can do this. You can shatter windows. You can break into the Capitol and chase lawmakers off the floor of the Senate and the House.
So, Ryan, talk to us a little bit about the template or precedent this might set going forward. There are still a lot of January 6 trials to come. And also talk to us about the significance that we were talking about this morning about how the January 6 committee report has been cited now in legal proceedings.
Yeah, I mean, the Proud Boys trial is the one that I'm really watching for, because they're doing jury selection for that right now. And there were a number of these transcripts that they've come out that are related to that. So I think that it's definitely going to have an impact in terms of the transcripts as well as the report in general. I think that, the judge just wanted to sort of make sure that and remember, he's a Bush appointed judge, wanted to make sure that he wasn't saying that this isn't true, right? He wasn't knocking down what the committee had said. And the committee's report essentially said that Donald Trump had this intent. Now, that's it's much different for Congress to say that in a report than it is for prosecutors to go forward. And
very, very true. And this guy is making sharp points, even if I don't like his delivery. I think that dude is actually in prison right now. Thank God. If only for the fact that he can't figure out how a shirt works. Yeah, it is. it is important to lay down that the details here are important. Okay. Let me try that again. It is important to lay down the fact that even though one person has partial responsibility for something, that doesn't mean another person is cleared of their responsibility for it. And it's important that they're bringing up the fact that it is another Republican-appointed judge that is saying this. Now, we do need to not rely on that like it's such a crutch. A Democrat-appointed judge, it would their legal ruling would have no less weight. You just need to see, I think, that, well, the average person just needs to see that this is not really a matter of, this is not at all a matter of political opinion. It simply is the law.
We should, definitely note that it's still a very challenging case that would be really unprecedented were the Justice Department to go forward with some sort of charges against Donald Trump in connection with January 6th. It's just not an easy layup. There's no really obvious criminal statute that applies to this conduct, especially with the First Amendment considerations. You would have to take into consideration if you were talking about, say, if he was, if you wanted to charge him with incitement. Incitement is one of those really difficult areas where a lot of these cases in terms of incitement have really run into some legal challenges during the appeals process, just because there are such First Amendment barriers. And a lot of what Donald Trump said during that speech is, pretty thoroughly protected by the First Amendment. But, I do think that it just shows that the January 6th committee's report is having an impact on this process. It's certainly something that the Justice Department is going to be sort of bringing into their prosecution, as well as judges, I think, are they're certainly reading through this themselves and recognize that the broader scope of what's happening with the January 6th committee and their final report here. And the thing I'm kind of wondering about is we were promised a lot of transcripts, and we only have a few more days left before they do. Right now, I think they've released about 100, a little bit over 100 transcripts, but really we've got a lot more transcripts to come, some of which could have really big implications on some of these ongoing cases and ongoing trials, as we have about 900 right now, but the total scope of this could ultimately be 3,000, especially with the new resources that are being brought in as a result of the omnibus bill.
Fair point from this gentleman. Ooh, let's go back here. So why don't we have all the transcripts yet? This is because the J6 committee knows how Republican crimes are generally covered up. Some of them are beneficiaries of it. Liz Cheney, her father, had his crimes covered up in this manner, and that is by waiting out the American people. What tends to happen is, and I've gone over this in a couple of other videos, I highly recommend you check them out. Did one yesterday on it. The Justice Department will let time pass. They will come out with an announcement and they'll say, we are looking into this. Then they'll let 6 months pass, a year pass, and always with their updates saying, well, this is a complicated thing. It's a very serious matter. It's a very grave matter. We have to look into this. And then when some other large piece of news is about to come out that will help cover it up, or just when they feel like America is sufficiently sick of hearing about it, they'll do a quick press conference where they say, no charges, all right, we got to go by. Or they'll say, we found some person that was sort of kind of connected to it, and we've charged them, and they're going to be the fall guy. So goodbye. I believe that's essentially what they were trying to do with January 6th. All these... They used to brag a lot more, the Justice Department, about catching these small fries, these easily duped rioters who actually did the hands-on dirty work. And they were putting out like statistics, like we've caught 300 people of the 10,000 or whatever. And they kind of stopped doing that once the J6 committee got going proper, once they had their first televised day of hearings, because it made it so clear that they were going after everybody except the powerful people. And it was a huge embarrassment for the Justice Department. So the J6 committee, being very savvy, they're releasing their transcripts. They're stretching this out as long as they can to keep it in the public consciousness for as long as they can. But they're shutting down. I mean, we lost the House. Thank you, New York Democrats, for that. Which means we're not going to be able to keep the J6 committee going. So they are releasing their transcripts so that news media can focus on one major breakthrough at a time, and that it stays in the public consciousness for as long as possible. But as I have said previously, those days are ending. So it's going to be on you watching, me, everyone around us, to keep the pressure on Merrick Garland and let him know that we didn't forget about this.